Okay, just a quick and pretty simple finish to this photo stamped stamp sketch scene. Okay, so just a little recap. This is stamped onto a cloudy background. The images have been stamped onto a cloudy background on just standard glossy photo paper. Okay, not glossy cardstock, but photo paper. Okay, photo papers have this emulsion coating on them. All right, so just your standard photo paper that you put through your, I don't know, inkjet printers, or you can get these backgrounds printed up at wherever. Costco is where I got mine. Used to be able to get them at Costco stores, but now they don't have the in-store photo department, so you can order them online or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to add in some additional tones. Now, the thing that I like to use on these types of scenes on photo paper are alcohol inks. It's because the alcohol inks, they're very surface oriented on here, so you can really manipulate them after you've added them down. The photo papers are kind of they're geared towards water-based media. Okay, so I stamped everything out using a dye-based ink, which really transfers and dries and adheres to this type of photo paper. You really can't manipulate them. And if you try to do this with water-based media, you probably can, but I wouldn't add in strong slatherings of ink or something like that. Okay, I would do use like stipple brushes or something like that if you're going to do it with water-based media. But a lot of you have dye or alcohol inks these days, so it's a pretty good way to go. And like I said, once I add it down like that, if I don't like it, I can just kind of blend it in and manipulate it with my blender pen or other colors of alcohol ink. I would say you can erase it, but you almost can with like a blender, a clear blender alcohol pen, just by swiping it on there and just kind of removing ink. All right, so that was just a little bit of a warm tone, and I'll go in here with a little, I don't know, this is like a brownish gray right here, and I'll kind of blend out some of that warm tone a little bit more. I like to kind of blend my colors on here and kind of spread them out a little bit. When you go back over the tones that you've already laid down, you kind of reconstitute it and you can kind of spread it out a little bit. So when you go over there initially, you can't really see anything being done, but if you kind of stay there a little bit, it puts the alcohol inks that you've laid down underneath it back into solution, and you can spread it around like this. Okay, now that being said, one of the things that's pretty cool about using photo papers like this is that you're not blurring any of the water-based dye ink imagery that you've stamped out because, alcohol and water don't mix. So you can use, this right over the top. You can do a lot of blending and your imagery stays really crisp, with that, playing around with that type of incompatible dynamic. It doesn't put it back into solution. All right, this is a little bit of a greenish tinge right here. Adding it down in some of my shadows. That's really like way too green. I don't want that, but when I'm blending it in, I like those different combinations of whatever mixes of colors. A little bit of a tan tone, so I'm adding this in this sandy area. Let's add it back into some of these rocks too. And I don't do a lot of, well, I don't know. I would say I don't do like really super strong saturations most of the time, unless I'm doing like an autumn type of scene that has like a lot of, fall types of colors, bright reds and oranges or something of that sort. But it's almost too strong, so I kind of go over it again. If I'm doing something like that, I go over it with some acrylic paint pens to kind of tone down some of the strong alcohol blends. But you see that right there? I can put that right back into solution like this and spread that around. Let me say, I don't have a ton of different colors and alcohol inks of the reddish variety for some reason, so I'm just going to have to make do. Well, maybe here's a little bit of a reddish brown right here. Here's a few tones like this. Hello, Candy. I don't use oil pencils on photo paper, Candy, because it probably would never dry on here. Things like oil-based media, if it's just sitting on the surface, they usually don't dry very well because they need to dry by absorption. It's just like oil-based inks on things like glossy cardstock. Sometimes they don't dry very well because it's just sitting there for a long time, and it can kind of spread out over time. Where you make your impressions. Okay, this one was a pretty good one right here. It's a sepia. The more inks you build up on there too, the more you can kind of manipulate it. Because it's like moving around like a big field of that color. Okay, this one's really quite dark like that. Look how bright that is. Like that. So that's just like too extreme for me. Like that. And too bright. But the thing is, on this type of paper, you can really kind of blend it around. So like that little swipe down there is a little bit too much. So let's go in here with the light one and see, I can just kind of put that right back in solution. And I can get the gist of that color right there. A little hint of that color, like that one right there. But see, it's just right there. It's a really diluted version because I've gone in with this. You can see a little bit of it right here. So I've actually lifted it off. If I just keep this pen right on there, it's going to remove it completely like an eraser. But I do like some of that tone, so I'm going to go in here with this kind of tan color and kind of blend some of it out so I have a little bit of it on here. And let's put some of it down in the sand here because, that sand is going to be probably composed of this type of rock, with this type of rock it's been eroding and, in this type of location for years. So we'll put some of it down into that, sandy slope right underneath it. All right, so Candy, I said that, but, there's different, I don't know if there's a lot of different types of photo papers out there. It's probably all the same general composition, but there might be some, some oil-based whatever, that could work. There's so many different brands. There's even like water-soluble oil paints out there these days, so there might be some types of things that I'm just unaware of that have come out like in the last 20 years. I know this friend of mine was working with water-soluble oil paints for a while. I don't know if he's still doing that or not, or if he just experimented with it briefly, but I was seeing one of my friend's daughter's paintings recently. I said, "Oh, what was that media that you used?" And she said oil-based or water-soluble oils. I was like, okay, haven't heard that for a while. All right, but see that right there? That makes for a really nice little blend like that, where, like this right here, I mean, it might have been a little bit harsh, but when you blend that in there like that, like I said, I can just completely remove that if I want to on this type of paper. It's pretty interesting, how you can utilize that. So, in some ways, working on this type of paper, if you want to kind of build up colors and layer and layer and layer like you can with alcohol inks on like a matte paper where it's soaking into the paper, the fact that you can't do that because you're just putting the other undercoats back into solution and manipulating it, it might not work for certain types of techniques that people like to do with alcohol inks. But if you want to be able to, do other things with alcohol inks and utilize these properties and this combination of media, surface and media combination, formulas right here, it's really good for that. So, you know what I mean? We just want to use the media for its the media combination, the combinations for their strengths like that. So, you know, you can I I don't know. Maybe that's a bad analogy, but it's almost like, you know, doing something on a dry erase board in some ways. You know, you can just absolutely remove, you know, what you've laid down, you know, so it's really user friendly in terms of that. But if you're trying to force, you know, maybe, you know, some type of media surface incompatibilities to work a certain way, you know, it might be a little bit of a struggle. Okay, so anyways, so see, like right here, I kind of wanted to go a little bit darker right in here, but I'm kind of removing some of that darker brown right in here because I'm going in here with this gray, but it's like removing some of that brown that I've laid down there. So it's actually getting a little bit lighter as I do, you know, some of this. So that being said, if I want to go with something like a black in there, that would probably work. But then that might be too dark where, you know, I might want to blend that black out, but I don't know how easy that would be to do. I don't know. Let me just try it right here. I'll put a little bit. Yeah, it's a little, it looks real blotchy, you know, going in there with this black like that. But let's see if I can blend it out. I don't know if I can, you know. I'll try to blend it out a little bit with this gray. But then am I just going to be removing completely that black? I don't know. Yeah, I'm starting to remove some of that warm brown here, but it's going okay. So you get a little bit of that residual black in here when you go into it, and then you can use it in some of those other areas while there's still a little bit of black on the tip like that. But yes, let's see, I create a little bit more of a shadow. I was thinking about creating a little bit more of a shadow down here on this sand right here, but I think that it'll do it right there. You try to create, I don't know, you try to like dance with you know, that media that you're doing in the way that it'll allow you to do it, but then it's like if I try to do some things with it, it's like getting a little bit awkward. So I try to, you know, do it as best as I can. Oil pastel. Okay, so oil. Okay, so Candy, you're probably not even asking me if I'm using oil pastels on this, though, right? Now that I think about it, I was just, I don't know, I'm mentally thinking about this, but I haven't used oil pencils in a really long time. If I did, I did it in college. I'm trying to think if I did or not, if we used any types of oil, like hard media, like oil past. We probably used oil pastels at some point in time. I'm trying to think if I have some of that in my supplies. I don't remember if I do. I don't remember seeing it at least. There might be like one stick of something here or there, but it definitely wouldn't be a set. All right, so I'm going in with my acrylic white paint pen and kind of adding a little bit of highlighting here into my rocks on the tops of some of those rocks in here. When you put it on the top there, it kind of becomes that, what is it, lineless coloring or whatever they used to call that, or, you know, still do. You just kind of get rid of that line on the top. And when you get rid of those outlines, things tend to look a little bit more kind of three-dimensional. I'm putting that line right there. I want some of the line because there's white in back of there, so I don't want to just obscure the, you know, that top of that ledge, but we can obscure a little bit of it and make it look a little bit more rounded. A little bit of a slope right down here in the dunes, right here. I go like so. You can put it, you know, go along with the some of the texturing if you want to. You just kind of follow the lines on the patterns on the dunes for a little bit, and it kind of makes it pop out a little bit more. A better color might be something a little bit less you know, stark white, like something like, you know, this peach color or something like that would kind of relate to that. Okay, so let's add in the fun here, which is going to be the white pigment ink. I'm using my Brilliance white one. Oils, let's see. How many are in your set, Candy? And are they all kind of like fine point ones, like a colored pencil, like a Prismacolor type of thing? Or are they like thicker styles of pencil? All right, so let's see here. Cotton ball, 100% cotton, as opposed to like an acrylic. You know, they don't call them acrylic cotton balls, but I don't know, like cosmetic balls or something like that. But 100% cotton just works. I would say a lot better, but I don't know. To me, the acrylic ones don't work at all. Okay, so I'm going to kind of expand on some of this cloudy area here. I'm just kind of introducing some of this texturing of a cotton on top of this paper right here. So I'm going out here a little bit with that cotton. You don't have to, but I don't know. To me, I'm going to get my bearings here. But I'm going to put in some, hopefully, what looks like somewhat dramatic lighting in here. Okay, I'm just going to do something real easy, and that corner section up there is going to be my kind of point of whatever emanating light. Okay, this is going to be like a cloud down here. It's illuminated right here, but I'm going to have some beams kind of coming out from behind. We're going to say this is a cloud right here. I mean, there is a cloud right there that we could see, but I'm going to position my beams coming out from right in here, okay? And I'm going to use that as my kind of vanishing point, okay? So, let's see here. It's really easy, okay? You just take your couple sheets of paper like this. It's kind of hard to tell because you can't see through this, you know, right now, but we're going to start adding in some beams, okay? Now here's the thing. Here's the little trick here that I've learned to do. I'm going to have it, this beam strength change from closer to the light source as it moves out this way, okay? So I'm going to add in a, you know, decent amount of ink, and I'm tapping very lightly here, okay? And then as I come out this way, you know, I've used some of the ink right here, but I'm also kind of tapping a little bit lighter and transitioning that beam, okay? And maybe I'll put a little bit more of the beam up top here as opposed to having it equally applied like a really super strong light beam, okay? And I'll show you what this looks like right here. So let's go out to here where I'm barely tapping anything, and plus it's also getting drier on this, but so here's that beam, and see how it kind of just disappears like that, okay? So you just use a lighter touch, but if you want more ink, then you just apply more of it in the same application. So just kind of do a light application, and you'll kind of get the feel of, you know, of how much to add. So I'm saying that as opposed to like scrunching this down stronger and getting like a big slathering, you know, of it down there. You can get a nice light, you know, application like that, okay? And now see that beam was that thick right there, you know, maybe I'll go with a little bit of a lighter, or not a lighter, but a kind of a narrower beam here or there. Okay, so let's vary it a little bit. Let's do this right here too. Let's do this. Let's go right on to our rider right here. Okay, see that right there? But I don't want to obscure them with a beam going across it, so I'll put a beam kind of leading to them, but it'll just kind of dissipate or whatever. It breaks up before it gets to them. So I'm kind of putting it right here, but it's just like a few little dry taps of it, okay? I'm kind of tapping a little bit harder right here just to squeeze out, because at this point in time I've used up a lot of the paint on here. I call it paint, but it's ink. All right, so do something like that. See that, like that beam going right to them, so it's kind of going behind them maybe, and this one's going all the way out this way. Well, let's put another beam like right in here. Maybe let's put it where it's going in front of this rock. Okay, it kind of will give this rock maybe a little bit more dimension by kind of surrounding it with light. You can go with a narrower beam, a wider beam, whatever. Okay. Why don't I do this? I'll have it as like a pretty wide beam, but we'll make it a really weak one, okay? Well, let me see what's still on here. Now, I don't want to do this all the way across there because I worked on that shadow a lot right on that rock there. So what I'll do is I'll kind of hang some of this beam right up here like that. When I mean hang it, I'm just kind of putting it a little bit up here, but not down there. And then let's come across here. We'll put it across some of these saguaro cacti right up here. I probably don't even need the bottom piece of paper right here. And I'll just put it really lightly down this way. Okay. Yeah, see something like that. It's just kind of, it's just really a gentle kind of reference. I don't know, maybe I can use a little bit more up top there like this. Let's do this right here. So remember, as you're doing this, you can always add more to it. So just add a little bit. It's like seasoning your, food with salt, just kind of add a little bit at a time. And then, I mean, as you get to be do this more often, you get a feel, of how much to add. But if I don't add the light beams in a while, I kind of do it slowly again. And you also kind of get to know how, moist your pad is and how much you're applying, with each tap. Okay. So I'm applying a little bit more right up here, kind of like that. So I get a little bit of a stronger beam like that. I mean, it's not like a strong beam, it's still a weak beam, but it's stronger than, before I added that really thin layer on there again. Something like that. Let's go with one more. Maybe down this way. So if I add a beam like right across this sky right here, it's going to be white against white, so I'm not really going to be able to see anything. So it's going to have to be added where, a certain area where there's a reasonable amount of darkness right in here. See, all these beams are a certain width right now. Maybe I'll go for a really narrow beam, like right in here, just for a little bit of contrast. Or not contrast, but kind of variation. I guess there's a contrast in size, but just variation. So I can see that all throughout there. It's all white. There's a little bit of cacti right there, but I'm not going to do that. So let's add this right in here. But like that, you can see, I didn't add it too much because you can still see how dark it is, but maybe we'll vary it a little bit. Maybe I'll make it a little bit lighter, closer, up here, so it's a varied strength. It's a little bit whiter there, and it becomes a little bit more, transparent. So you have a little bit more opacity up here, and a little bit more, it's translucent, but it's moving towards transparency. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell right here, it's a little bit stronger and a little bit lighter. I used to do all my beams like the same strength. So this is like something that I've just kind of tweaked in, I don't know, the last year maybe, or something like that. But okay, so anyways, these beams, I mean, not on this one, not really, but sometimes they get too harsh, with all these like really straight edged shapes within this space. So what I do sometimes is I go back in afterwards and I just kind of add in a little bit of white pigment ink, more towards the source, just to kind of soften up, the shapes a little bit. I'm talking about the beam shapes in here, okay? But see, when you do it kind of lightly like that, they kind of integrate with the surroundings a little bit more, probably because the surroundings are showing through the beams a little bit more. So anyways, but you get these beams like that. They become, they kind of become the star of the scene in some ways. They're the drama of the piece. It sets the mood and kind of character of it. And it kind of it really integrates your scenery and all these pieces in with the lighting, because here's this light coming in front of, this rock. There's some of the beams going in back of it. Some of them are, um, I don't know, more distant, I guess. You can do, I can come in here more, but I want to keep this more of the kind of that motion like that. So I think, I don't know, I think it adds kind of a nice character to it. You can kind of do that on, a lot of different scenes too, adding these beams into it. Sometimes I get, finished with a composition and it's a little bit, it's missing something, it can use some, I don't know, dynamics, So if you add in kind of angled shapes into a composition, if the composition already doesn't have some angles in it, you can really add in that drama, stronger sense of lighting, and I don't know, it adds kind of the fun into a lot of scenes. So I wouldn't say it saves scenes, but it could, but it definitely enhances them quite a bit more. Now, if you're using the Brilliance pigment ink too, the Brilliance pigment ink really sticks to, this paper right here. It's not like adding in, like some sort of pastel or something like that over the top of this paper. You don't really need to spray seal this. The alcohol inks really adhere really strongly and firmly to this type of surface. The dye-based inks, being water-based, certainly do. So this is, as you're doing it, it's kind of nice, to have a media that's, as you're applying it, what you see is what you get, Not that spray fixatives are bad. A lot of times they can enhance things too and make, the saturations of colors stronger, but I don't know, it's kind of nice to be working with some types of media sometimes where it's just like, I know exactly what this is going to look like at each step of the way. All right, so we have that. Sometimes in the path of the beam, I put little highlights on the objects that it kind of encounters along the way. It's like on these saguaros, right? I can't zoom in anymore. I think I'm going to go out of focus right here, but see this beam right here where it encounters that saguaro, whatever, stalks. I'll put a few highlights on that part of the object like that. Not really in the real distant objects, but on the closer ones like that. So see that right there? You put those little highlights like that, it makes them look a little bit more dimensional. Like that, adding, they're more rounded, so we're saying that side of it is capturing the light. Okay, but anyways, that is it on this scene. So it's a pretty quick way to finish these pieces off. I really love using, it's my favorite surface, I think, to use alcohol inks on because of that kind of that blending that you can do on there. So Yeah, definitely a combination that I'd recommend. So, water-based impressions on top of photo paper, and then alcohol inks over the top of that, blending it around a little bit, and then the Brilliance ink right over the top of it to kind of mellow, my harsh kind of, you know, unrefined applications of alcohol ink on there. Um, I like okay, so I like the surface for alcohol inks because I don't, I'm not really that great at applying alcohol inks. I'm not like a, Copic certified instructor or anything like that. I've never taken a lesson in that at all. So I like being able to lay something down and, if need be, uh, really blend it out. If not, and the option there is for complete removal on this type of surface. So it's awesome. And then I kind of bury it a little bit with a little bit of pigment ink over the top of it, because it kind of like smooths it out a little bit by having these soft types of, you know, applications of this right over the top of it. So it's like, okay, don't look at my, uh, feeble application of, coloring or toning or anything like that. So I put something over the top of it, like beams, or it's usually like mist or something like that, and fog, and it puts the alcohol ink applications like one layer back from it, from the surface applications. So you really look at, the impressions and then the pigment ink, really more so than the coloring a lot of times. So, but I think it all works really great together, and I really love that type of those types of combinations that are really super user friendly, and you can go back and manipulate them to get them where you want them to be, even if you've applied like a color or something like that, or a swipe or an area that it didn't look too good. So yeah, always a plus. Let's see. Okay, so it's a normal pencil there. Oh, it's a set of 8. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Play around with it, Candy. I was going to say if you have like a big set of there or something like that, maybe you do something kind of impressionistic with them, like the oil painters impressionists did. A starry night like Van Gogh. Or I don't know, you can get kind of crazy with them. Oil pastels are pretty I mean, not oil pastels, but oil pastels too. But they're pretty bold, and you can almost get like an impasto, like a really thick application. Probably not with the pencils. I got to think the oil pencils are probably, they have to be harder than oil pastels just because it has to go in stick form. So, um, if you're kind of laying down something into one another. But here's the thing to look for on those ones, Candy. See if you can lay down, so do little experiments. Take, a piece of cardstock or something like that and lay down some colors. So lay down try to get a transitioning tone of your pastels, like something like this, and then work lighter with it like that, so you want to see how it's going to look and if you're going to be able to do that. And also, let me see, you said you inherited them, so you got to check them for hardness, but do something like that, okay? And then do it in like a lighter color, like a yellow or something like that, and then add oranges over the top of it and see if you can get this transitioning swatch. But also look for some darker colors, lay down some darker colors, and then lay down some lighter ones over the top of it and see. I suspect that light over dark might not work with those, because if you're putting some lighter one over the top, it might dig into the darker one. I'm not sure. It might mix, the two together. And that's another thing too. You can see if they blend, how well they blend. And if they're not blending super well, then use them for that. Use them for like these really nice separate applications of tone where you're going to have like these distinct marks. So like I said, like some kind of like impressionistic type of thing, you can use them for, or you can use them in conjunction with, other types of media, like if you wanted to do, we're heading into spring here, and colors like that with blossoms. You can do a scene with a lot of you can do a forest with like bluebells, like a carpet of bluebells down there. If you have like a purple, pink and white or something like that, and maybe the oil pastels work, or oil pencils work better than some other types of media on there. I'm not sure. But those are the types of things that I would think about in terms of like an oil medium. I see it as something that you'd be able to put over the top of your water-based media too. So it could just be like accents or something like that, or you can try using it as your core medium for doing an entire piece too. You know, I don't know. That's not something that I would do personally, because I'm not really, I don't do a whole lot of like big colored pencil things either. But that's just me though. It's not because, I think it's a bad idea. I'm just, I use things a little bit differently, but you can play around with it. Hello, Froggy Fresh and Laura. Hello, Janine. How are you? So anyways, so if you just joined in here, this is, the stamp sketch that we did on standard photo paper. I just wanted to do a really quick, finishing off of a piece. So you stamp your objects onto glossy photo paper. Could be semi-gloss or matte photo paper too. But that emulsion coating on photo paper, that are meant for going through a inkjet printer with water-based inkjet inks in it, okay? So if you didn't see these ones done, these stamp sketches, dye-based ink to, stamp your composition on the top of this paper. And I really like the alcohol inks to color these, because it's not going to smear the water-based dye impressions, right? Because that alcohol and water don't mix. And then I like going over the top of these things and adding in like these little finishing touches. I always use my Brilliance ink with a little bit of a, cotton ball. Not always for light beams, but it's usually for fog or something like that. And that kind of, it blends in my alcohol ink coloring on top of this photo paper like this, because the photo paper, the alcohol ink is really sitting very, very surface oriented on top of that emulsion on top of this paper, so you can really manipulate it. Okay. Don't expect it to, if you've used a lot of like Copic markers on matte types of papers or something like that before, where it's soaking into your paper, don't expect it to do that. It's going to have a little bit of a different feel, but you can really push it around a lot. And then you can remove ink too, because it's very surface oriented. So if you go in there and you try to color and build up colors, sometimes you're going to be removing the colors that are underneath. But I like that though, because I can really blend in all kinds of colors. If I don't have, something in between like this color and, I don't know, whatever, a lighter color, let's say if I want to blend these two colors in like that, but I wanted an intermediate color on top of that type of paper right there, you can kind of just blend those two together. And as you go over this one right here, it's picking up and it's going back into solution. You can kind of drag it down there a little bit, So it's good. It's really fun to do that too. It's fun to kind of moving color around a little bit that's kind of floating on the surface of the emulsion glossy photo paper. Okay, so not to be mistaken, if you haven't seen this done before, it's glossy photo paper. Again, it's not the same as glossy cardstock. Okay, if you do the alcohol inks on glossy cardstock, it's going to be absorbing into that type of paper, but the emulsion on photo paper is different. And like I said, it's just a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with it, with the alcohol inks on there. But okay, so this piece right here was all about these light beams in here. And I really, when I stamped this, I didn't plan for those, but after I stamped it, I thought, okay, the light is coming from over here. I got this little character in here. These crepuscular rays might be kind of fun. So I just kind of created this vanishing point right here. and you just do all of your little, your beams of light. Here's your light beam template right here, just 2 pieces of paper like that. And then add a little bit more white pigment ink closer towards the light source like that. So you just tap in a little bit more. Closer to the light source, which is that up there in the Erie. And then you tap a little bit more, and then you just kind of leave a little bit less down here so you can get that kind of transitioning beam where it's a little bit stronger and a little bit weaker out here. When people first do this type of thing, they try it out. And this is the case with mine too, okay? All their beams like that, it's like a solid, thick layer of pigment ink. Okay, and that looks okay too. It's just, it's really harsh. It's like a really like solid beam, that kind of obscures everything in the background, okay? And it's because everyone's pigment inks are like super juicy too, it seems. Like they're white ones because they don't use it that often. But after I started doing those really strong beams, I started doing these much more see-through, translucent ones, or the ones that just kind of, there's a beam right here, but by the time you get over here, there's no beam because I didn't add any pigment ink in here. So I started transitioning beams from more solid to thinner and then gone, like that way. But also, sometimes like this, I have a little bit more pigment ink up top here, and it transitions down here into lighter. So you can, the thicker the beam, you can do that. So like up here, I don't know, like on a couple of these, like this one right here, you can see there's a little bit more pigment ink up here, and there's a little bit less ink down here, kind of, And you can also break up beams. You can have like beam going like that. And then there's nothing right here. It's like this one right here. There's like a beam coming right here. And it kind of dissipates, and it's like gone right here. But then I pick it up again down here, so it's like breaking up of the beam too. And I think that looks, to me, it looked more realistic. You can see it a lot more if there's like a darker background, like in a dark forest or something like that. And there's a bunch of trees in here. I'll make my beams like this. I'll kind of add some of it, and then I'll add more of it over here, nothing in between there, or something like that. You break it up like that, but add just a really thin layer. And then take a look and see how it's looking. Then if you want to add more, you can just go back and, just lay your piece of paper down like that and just, add a little bit more accordingly. Because it's kind of like a blind application when you're doing it, with a piece of paper like that. I guess you can use like, a piece of, whatever, clear mylar or something like that if you really want to. If you're like doing light beams all the time, have a, or like a little cellophane bag like this or something, those card bags or something like that. You can do that, and you can kind of see, what's going on. A couple of these, pieces of plastic or something like that might work, or I don't know, like folder. I don't know. You can do that type of thing. I haven't, but I don't know. It would seem like it would kind of make sense to do that. Which is probably the reason why I haven't done it, before. I don't think about these things, you know what I mean? I'm a really slow learner, so anyway. Glad you like it, Laura. It's just what this piece needed, right? Those little light beams in there kind of gives the piece a little bit more drama and motion, I think, like that. And it just, it just happened that way because this cloud was like in that corner right there. So I thought, it's a perfect place for some light beams. You can't really see the light beam over the top of that white in there, but it's kind of implied that it's probably reaching up there. You don't need to do the full beam, like, it kind of emanates from right up there where, I could have had it white right there, but you know what I mean? You don't have to. You can like break it up a lot, like I said. So there's, the beams are kind of coming from right here. I mean, I could have done one like, okay, so you can have the beam starting from right here, like this, like all these clouds are blocking it out right here, but then, here it, another bit of it comes out over here. You could do it like really faint or something like that, and that would be really cool too. So you can kind of, I would really recommend doing these types of beams and just do them, play around with it. And when you start doing that, it's like, oh, okay, let's play around with a little bit more subtlety or something like that, you know, more than the really like super strong, bold ones. And I think that's where I don't know, a little bit more of the character, you know, it gives it a little bit more character, like nuanced character, I should say. You know, the real harsh ones are character too, but stuff like that, or you know, just a little bit of highlights on the objects in the path of the beam are kind of fun to do too. It kind of creates this little bit of a this interactive type of thing between kind of light source and reflected light like that, you know. So you can see I put those little highlights on those little bits of cacti just in the path of the beam like that. Now, I don't know. I mean, I just do that, you know. That doesn't mean that that beam could be like 5, you know, or, you know, 15 miles behind this cacti, but I just kind of put that little bit in there like that. I think it's just kind of fun to do like that. So anyway, hello Valerie, good to see you. Yeah, the photo paper's fun, huh, Janine? So these certainly make for really quick scenes too. You know, you can just stamp right over the top of them. Sometimes I don't add in any coloring. On something like this, it seems like it's missing something without some additional tones. So I'll finish this one off at another time, and I'll add in some, I don't know, some colors and wildflowers or something like that. But yeah, when you start off with these clouds like this in the background and just stamp your pieces over the top of it, I don't know, like 70% of the work is done or something like that, because you have kind of light and shadow, you know, just inherently in the scene, just based on, you know, what the background was, you know, what the background has in it. In this case, those clouds. So I always say, you know, the clouds are in the Facebook Stampscapes group, free for download. It's also on my Flickr page under the cloud photo stamping album, I think I called it. And you can download them. You can print them on your inkjet printer, or you can send them out and get them printed if you get a bunch of them. I usually get like, you know, last time I did, I had like 30 or 40 prints made just for a few cents each, you know, from Costco. And, you know, so I have a pack of these to kind of look through when I'm doing photo stampings. You know, the clouds are a little bit different. And these cloud backgrounds are also good, right, for doing vellum scenes where you stamp on vellum and then you fix it right over the top of some clouds in the background. That's really fun to do too. So you get these really opaque things like, you know, whatever birch tree trunks in front of, you know, a cloudy background or something like that. It's makes for really quick scenes too. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, glossy cardstock and photo paper. Yeah, very different. Certain types of things can apply to both surfaces. I wouldn't call it equally, but similarly, okay? But certain types of things are vastly different. They're almost like the polar extreme different in terms of how they accept different types of inks. Okay, so that's where a lot of people run into troubles. They'll see my glossy cardstock lesson or something like that. They try to apply some of those same techniques used on the cardstock, but on photo paper. But the photo paper is like reacting completely different to it. And they think, oh my God, you know. Anytime I always hear this, like, oh my God, he made it look so easy, but I tried it and it's not. Well, they used like completely different things on there. Or they go with the photo paper here, and instead of dye-based inks, they use a VersaFine Clair, okay? Like this. Now you have an oil-based medium on top of a photo paper water-based media surface. And then they start, you know, coloring on top of that. And then that VersaFine Clair oil never dries on there. So it's like they're, you know, they're smearing all of their impressions with the alcohol ink that's putting it back into solution. So like I said, you know, there's certain types of, you know, surfaces that, you know, you just want to use the, you know, the right media compatibility and it'll work fine. Or if they stamp out these images like this with StazOn, the images usually look pretty good on here on StazOn. But if you color, with alcohol inks, your solvent ink types of impressions, you're going to be putting that solvent ink back into solution. It's going to be smearing all of it. So this really works well with water-based media on here. And, alcohol and water don't mix, where alcohol, into like solvents or something like that, it will put it back into solution. So, you know what I mean? You just kind of follow. It doesn't have to be the same brands of anything, but just use this, the same types of media, when you're working with kind of unconventional stamping surfaces, like photo papers or something like that. They're meant to be going through inkjet printers, but when you use them with the, compatible media with, paper arts, types of media, you really work to her, It can really be a dynamic surface for us in creating certain types of scenes or looks, So, yeah, always do that. If there's any questions, just drop me a note. Just say, hey, I tried, that whatever thing, and I'll just say, well, okay, well, what did you, what media did you use on there? And I can tell you, if there's a, some tweak on there that you need to do, or just, okay, switch out that pad with, whatever, your Memento black instead of your StazOn black or something like that, and you'll be able to get these types of things like that. Yeah, glossy cardstock, Janine. So I directed someone over to glossy cardstock today. They were asking about it. So things like glossy cardstocks, you can really lay down lots of inks. Glossy cardstock was I wouldn't say it was the most common surface that people were stamping on for a long period of time, and that was 80s. I would say through the 90s. It was matte. There was matte cardstocks too that people did. A lot of people stamped on things like envelopes too. But glossy cardstock was definitely, something that was in, I'm guessing 90% of all stampers' supplies, because there weren't a lot of accessories out there either, back then. And people like Dee Grunig, that's all she used was glossy cardstock, and she was always on Carol Duvall and things like that, stamping, those posh impression things. And when you went to conventions, all stores too carried glossy cardstock. And somewhere along the line, I don't know where, I think maybe it's the popularity of Copic markers or something like that came into play, and then you saw less people using glossy over time. So it just seems to be a lost type of thing. Not with people that have been stamping for a while, but it just wasn't being taught as much, like back when. So like I said, all stores worldwide had glossy cardstock. So places like Australia or something like that, or Canada, places that, stamping's been around for a long time, the UK and Germany, all those stores were able to source like glossy cardstock somewhere, but it's been really hard to source outside of the U.S. In the U.S., you can pick it up at Amazon.com if you want to, but like Marco's papers, but I don't know, it's been really hard to find now that the stores are gone, so I don't know where those stores used to get it from. And some of those sources were no longer around after a while, but glossy cardstock, if you want to go for like dynamics and things like that, there's nothing more dynamic in the printing industry than glossy cardstock as far as getting attention. That's why it's on movie posters are all printed on glossy cardstock, book covers, business cards, flyers, postcards, greeting cards a lot of times, because nothing is going to have a surface that you can print on that's going to have a higher degree of intensity, saturation, and richness than glossy cardstock. So a movie poster has to get someone's attention from, whatever, 50 yards away or something like that, or book covers, sitting on a bookshelf or something like that. They're competing with, 50,000 other books, and they don't want to have they don't want to be, kind of limited in terms of, the potential impact. So oftentimes it was in like that cover stock thickness of glossy, again for that intensity. Yeah, there's other books that are done in like satin and things like that, but you hardly ever get like matte book covers or something like that. It's mostly glossy. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now, and the ones that have covers on them are usually glossy covers, or the ones that are softbound. That outside jacket that it's been printed on are mostly glossy. So it's fun stuff to use for that, for that reason. Um, yeah, but for like a more softer look or something like that, it would be, matte would be the opposite of that. So, and remember, think about this too. Speaking of that, and photo papers, these photo papers come in glossy, satin, and matte as well. Most people have glossy though, and most people have a lot of that glossy sitting around from, when digital cameras came out, and for the first 10 years of digital cameras and things like that, everyone was like printing out, more photos at home, and every time you picked up a new printer, it was like the perks of it were always like, if you buy this printer for whatever, $100 or something like that, then you get a free, 50 pack or 25 pack of 8.5 by 11 glossy paper, that came with it, you know. And so I find that most people have a lot of this stuff sitting around at home, from those times. So it's fun to play around with if you have like a inkjet printer. Or, like I said, if you're getting a bunch of these, you just send it out, and don't want to use up all your inkjet ink, on it, and just get a bunch of them, and then you have a lot of them to use for a really long time. I haven't gotten a new print. I don't know. I probably picked up 30 of these or something like that the last time I ordered it from Costco or something like that, and I don't know. I've been using them for like 5 years probably. I don't know. When did Costco get rid of their photo centers? So I think it's been at least 5 years, hasn't it? But I got it like right after that. So you have to pay for shipping. But sometimes like Shutterfly has like 100 like glossy prints for free. Haven't seen that lately. But sometimes you get those deals like that, and you can just upload it, and you just pay for shipping from those places. And it's usually the glossy that's the standard thing. And if you get like matte, it costs a little bit more. It's probably because people don't get as much matte prints when they order photos. I didn't like glossy cardstock. If water got on it, it would bleed. Gotta watch out for that water. Don't spill any water on that candy. I don't know. I don't get. Do you get water like spilling on your or getting on your cards very often? Well, that's also why you spray seal it too. You just spray seal it, you know, and you don't have to worry about that. Plus, the spray sealing of these types of ink, it's like this on here, it makes it even more saturated too. It's like staining wood or something like that, or putting like a clear coat on top of wood. You know how the wood gets, you see the grains more when you put that type of finish on there. The same type of thing happens if you're doing like, layered saturations of transparent colors. All those layers are a little bit more distinct. You can see a lot of it. I have a lot of spray sealing videos. In fact, I have a playlist, and you can see where I take like, a lot of it is on glossy, some of it's on different types of surfaces, but the ones where it really benefits is where I take this and I'll spray seal one side of it, and you can see the super saturation come out with the sealants, and then you can compare it to the other side, and then I spray seal the other side like that. But I have a lot of videos like that, and a lot of it's on glossy. But once you lay that type of acrylic down, you're not going to get water on it. But I don't know, yeah. So if you're getting water or splashing water on it like that, then yeah. But I don't know. Speaking of that, so I mean I do this water-based media on here that I use. So Yeah, it's all part of the combo. That's how dye-based inks work. They work by staining surfaces, as opposed to being a surface-oriented type of medium like, pigment inks or solvent inks. They're very surface-oriented, which is why they don't work on, things like photo papers too much, because they don't dry, like oil-based versifying clairs or something like that on photo paper. It's not absorbing at all, so you get this suspended, oil-based impression on there. And over time, if it's like a really thick image like this, a lot of solid blacks, if you look at it after a month, it might have bled out a little bit. You can see where the black isn't so distinct, or the edges, and you see this kind of like oily stain around on the edges like that. It's there. You see this discoloration, and I didn't know that would happen on the papers, but I did that one time. I stamped my image and I went back to look at it, I don't know, like a month later or something like that, and it had really spread out. Hello, Bonnie. I get cards set on the counter and it bleeds. And it bleeds if damp. Spray seal, then, Candy, before it bleeds out, then. Certain types of inks on glossy could bleed too. Like if I'm doing like this type of scene and I'm using all memento ink or something like that, or distress inks or something like that, those inks are a lot thicker, okay? So if I stamp that black image on top of that while it's still wet, it might kind of bleed out, but then, but the great equalizer to all different types of brands of inks and viscosities of ink. Okay, now this one was Marvy inks that we used on here. Okay, Marvy inks are thinner, so they're penetrating the paper in the pulp, and they're drying faster as a result than, say, a super thick, more gel-like ink. And when I say gel-like ink, I'm talking about basically every ink that I've ever seen, except for Marvy inks. Marvy inks are definitely thinner, okay? But, I always say the great equalizer to all the different brands and viscosities of ink are spray sealants. So you just spray seal after stamping. And that kind of expedites the drying process, I think. I think it locks down those colors that might still be in a little bit of solution. So let's say this is the ink that's been laid down on the top of glossy cardstock, and you've laid down more ink and more ink and more ink. It's kind of wet. The surface of the page is a little bit wet. The pulp of the page is maybe, a little bit, I wouldn't say super saturated, but a little bit. And then if you stamp all, your image on the top here, and if this is still in solution a little bit, and this is, it might start to bleed out a little bit. But if you spray seal it, I think it penetrates these inks and locks it down. And plus they look a little more vibrant anyway, so it's not just for protection and kind of the halting of the spreading out of that, but it just, they look better too. It makes all your colors a lot more saturated. And so, that's what they do with things like oil paints too. You put that, Damar varnish onto there. I think there's Kamar varnish too. I'm not sure what the difference is, but we always use Damar varnish to go over our oil paintings. And, some of the colors looked a lot brighter. And it protected them. It put that nice shiny coating over the top of it. And that's what's happening with printer inks too. They're probably going through a printer. They're going through the 4 colors, to add in, whatever, magenta, cyan, yellow, and black. And then I think that last step, it goes through this additional clear coating on top, not with all of them, but I think it does in a lot of them. So the super glossy, like book jackets and posters, I think it has an additional layer of clear coat. So that you're just kind of mimicking that same type of process at home using, the media that we have available to us. And, all that stuff's been out there for a really long time, take advantage of. And it's all easy to do too. You can spray seal everything if you want to, and it would probably improve it a little bit. Um, Especially if it was like a thin spray fixative. So on this one, I don't need to spray it, but I could put a little bit of a spray fixative over the top of it if I wanted to, and that would just kind of coat it a little bit and dry it. So I don't know if you send it out to someone and they're going like this over the top of it, which no one's ever going to do, right? It'll keep probably that beam intact, but like I said, that beam's like perfectly affixed to that surface because it's a water-based Brilliance ink that's been used on there. So, yeah, I don't know. Experiment around too and see what things are going to be compatible. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that are compatible that I didn't think would be by simply trying it, and some things are out there too, out there in the card making space, and I don't know what it is. It was just like, with social media and everything like that, someone might say, okay, you can't stamp on foils. I've seen that a lot. Or you can't, wait, I heard you can't stamp on vellum. Okay. But it might just be someone that tried, some incompatible thing and they posted it and that thing got shared, whatever, 10,000 times over the course of 15 years. And then it just became, oh, you just can't do it, where I just didn't see any of that stuff and I tried something and it worked just fine. Or, I tried something and it didn't work and I tried something else and it worked fine. So, I know you just got to play around with it a little bit and then see. And then there might be differences in certain brands too. Like we're talking about dye-based inks and viscosity. They're a little bit different from one another. But some of them are the same because they're made by the same manufacturer. They just have a different brand name in it. I think Stewart, I don't know if it's still called Stewart Superior, if it's just Stewart, but Stewart's the manufacturer of a lot of different ink pads out there of different types. So a lot of those are the same. So I'm not really aware of who's making what these days, because a lot of it's been consolidated into a couple different manufacturers, with like ClearSnap being gone, and I don't know, there were different manufacturers. Printworks made their own pads, and there were so many different ones out there over the years. Some of them were a little bit different, but some of them were the same. So you can try out one of them, and if you knew all the other pads that were coming out of that same manufacturer, then you can kind of say, okay, well, this is going to be, if you use these different brands, you'll have no problem with a certain technique. But it's all become a little bit more confusing to me because I don't know who's around anymore, or where certain, pads are coming from, something like that. And sometimes the cases are different too, but it's the same manufacturer of Stewart. So, I don't know. So yeah, do little things, do little swatches and test prints or something like that. And that should, and then test it over time too and see how it works. You might have to do one and then do another one, spray seal one, don't spray seal the other one, see if how the impressions are looking, see if it's the same darkness and crispness over the course of like a week or something like that. And yeah, or you can just and there's also on the Stampscapes Facebook group, someone put together kind of a list of kind of existing known media surface compatible combinations out there, and I think it was like a PDF that they uploaded into that group. I should have Linda. If Linda was the one that did that, I should have her put that on her Flickr group too. So someone's not on Facebook, they can just download that PDF off of Flickr, which is public, entity. You don't have to be a member of Flickr to be able to view things on Flickr. And I don't think you have to be a member to download either. So anyway, but if you're trying something that I'm doing, just check in the description sections and it'll say what I've used on most of my videos, in terms of the media used on there. All right. Or simply just ask me, drop me a note and I'll tell you what you need to do if something went haywire. All right, folks. Hope you like the scene. Try some light beams sometime. They're a lot of fun. Okay, so we're speaking to papers and things like that with these light beams right here. If you're doing these beams on top of practically anything other than photo paper, okay, glossy cardstock, pre-printed papers, the wood grain paper, the vintage papers, whatever, linen, you know what I mean? You can use whatever type of white pigment ink that you want. Now, glossy cardstock there's a reputation for pigment inks not drying on top of glossy cardstock, speaking of glossy cardstock. But if I'm doing like a real thin application of, my Hero Hues or whatever, oil-based pigment inks, we're not making impressions, like thick impressions on top of glossy cardstock where this might not dry. But if you're doing a real thin application, I find that it dries just fine. You might want to spray seal it afterwards, but it dries with no problem because it's just such a thin application of it, okay? So you can play around with your whatever, Stampin' Up, pigment ink or something like that, or, Hero Hues Unicorn, and yeah, it shouldn't be any problem. All right, everyone, have a great night. Hope to see you on the next live stream. I'll probably do something with this right here. Adding in those alcohol inks on this one was so much fun. So, yeah. I don't know if I'll do light beams on here. If I did light beams on here, I'd probably have it going like up into the sky or something like that. I don't know. Might be fun. Stays on white's like a more or less solvent one. So no, Candy. You can't. Now, Candy, if anyone can do it, maybe you can, seeing your pieces like this. But if I just put like a dot of this like this, that is going to be like dry, like the moment I put it down like that. Or if you ink up with this like this, when you're going like this to apply it on something on top of that cotton ball, I bet you it's going to be absolutely dry before you even transfer it over here. So yeah, I don't know, but you might have to be the one to tell us if that works or not. If that did work, this would probably have to be like a super, super, absolutely slathered in ink pad right there with a lot of pigment ink. And if you're doing that type of thing, if this stays on pads open, you're kind of working like this and working down here and working like this. You don't want to have this pad open for too long either. This type of pad right here is meant for inking up a stamp, covering it up and making your impression with it really fast, not doing these super light applications of it. It'd be like trying to do, applying like Sharpie ink on top of this or something like that with a Sharpie pen and then going in here like that to blend it. I think it would be dry like practically instantly. So, but, speaking of that, with that kind of property in mind, you want to use it for the, applications for which it's ideal for, which probably isn't, blending. It would probably be something like, if you wanted like some really strong applications of that, like, maybe you take a pencil eraser or something, this one doesn't have an eraser, but you can go like this and do like little things somewhere where they're really bold, opaque, instantly dried applications of that, other than, making impressions from. So, just use the different types of inks, for what they are kind of, I wouldn't say designed for, because like, again, we're using some of these pads in ways that, they weren't intended for, but the properties of it are compatible with that type of surface. All right, folks, have a great night. Thanks again for joining in. Hope to see you on the next live.